My name's Kevin Billington. I directed The Rise and Rise of Michael Rimmer and was also involved with the writing of it. And the writing of it was really fascinating because I was working with Peter Cook, John Cleese and Graham Chapman. Two of them are geniuses and Graham was a mystery. Peter was a genius because he literally could take anything you said and go into a great riff about it. I remember we used to have lunches together. This was John and Peter, Graham, and sometimes Dudley Moore would pop in because at that time he was at a bit of a loose end. They'd done Pete and Dud, but it was before he'd done his American films, 10 and Arthur, and we'd have lunch. And if I could have recorded those lunches, we'd have made gold records. They were absolutely astonishing because John is very serious. I don't mean he's solemn, but he's serious, and he would ask things like, Kevin, you did economics at Cambridge. Tell me, what is the gold standard, really? And Peter would take gold standard, and within 5 minutes, tears were rolling down your face. It was absolutely extraordinary. He was a genius in that way. John was in another. John is the most incredible physical person in terms of comedy.
Mr. Ferret? Oh! Just popped in to cancel our contract.
Morning. You all right? Mr.
Rimmer, sir. Coordination.
Ah, yes.
The backgrounds of all these people is interesting because of the satire boom that happened in England in the early 60s. They'd all been in Oxbridge and either appeared in television or, like myself, had made television. This was before Monty Python. It was after Beyond the Fringe and a programme called That Was the Week That Was, which was a programme by Ned Sherry, which I knew about because I'd worked on Tonight, which was an evening magazine, and it was like Son of Tonight. I knew David Frost from that time. He first impressed me, actually, because I was working in Soho on a documentary or something, and he came by and went into the hairdressers, the barbers, and then went in, and he left this taxi outside, and I went in the barbers with him. And then when he'd finished his haircut, he went back and got in the cab and went on. Now, this was not BBC behaviour, and I realised I was dealing with somebody who was going to take all these things, and in fact, by the scruff of the neck. This was a clue to David and to the way he behaved. I think it's difficult to realise now how significant he was. You know, it's like a combination of Jonathan Ross plus a big top television interviewer plus a businessman. He was doing everything. We then come to the look of the film, 1969. The cameraman was Alex Thompson. Actually, Alex was later nominated for an Oscar for Excalibur. And we decided on a cool, bluish look to show Rimmer's coldness, his calculating, no warmth, slightly unreal. I wanted it to look good. I didn't want what I would call comedy lighting and setups. We used elaborate tracking shots, zooms, large setups with crowds, luxurious interiors, expensive-looking sets, elaborate. And for this period, state-of-the-art TV studios and gorgeous houses. I didn't want it to look, if you like television or cheap. The art director was the brilliant Carmen Dillon. She was already in her 60s, and she'd won an Academy Award with Olivier's Hamlet. She also did Richard III and Losey's Go-Between. She had an extraordinary eye and made the money really count. The wonderful lavatory, that was a set that she built for the opening sequence. And Rimmer's rise was symbolised by his changing surroundings. Rimmer was all surface and presentation, and the film had to reflect this. Dudley Foster. Dudley was a very serious actor.
Back to the grindstone.
Consummate actor. And his scenes with Rimmer, the looks between them, both in the loo, taking the sort of Racing Express in, or whatever it was he was taking in there, and also in the office as the accountant, just doing all the betting stuff. Now, the background was satire, as I said, and John had been on The Frost Report, which was a regular programme. I'd been on Tonight. Pete had done Beyond the Fringe with Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, Alan Bennett, started The Establishment and Private Eye. He was an amazing success. So we had these utterly different people together. I mean, John, as I say, is not solemn. He howls with laughter, whereas Peter will be straight out of the window on one of his riffs. David was very busy at this time. He asked me to come and help with the writing of it. That was the first thing. There'd been actually a draft by John and Graham, And the draft was very long and a few pointers here and there, and Peter and I got involved. And my job really was to try to help with the structure and make it like a film as opposed to a lot of sketches. Whether we succeeded, I don't know, but that was one of the things we tried to do. As I say, David was very busy. He had the success of That Was the Week, and he had interview programmes in London and New York at the same time. He used to fly backwards and forwards every week. So he didn't see us at all when we were shooting. We spoke on the phone, usually him being very encouraging and saying super. I don't know whether he saw much from the film, but he didn't have much time for us, and that was true with the writing as well. So I knew David because our paths across the BBC. I also knew John because he'd appeared in a film I made the year before called Interlude, which was a love story with a wonderful actor called Oscar Werner. And John had a small part as a failed PR man. And I'd then gone off to America to make a film. This was now the beginning. That was 68 we wrote it, and then 69 I went off. But that film didn't happen, and David came over, and I remember shaking hands with him in the swimming pool on Sierra Alta Way, my swimming pool. He couldn't swim, actually, so it was in the shallow end. Peter said that the thing he really regretted is he once saved David from drowning. I think he meant it as a joke. As I say, difficult to overestimate David at that time. He was full of energy, and now he's this rather distinguished chap, you know, but then he was full of energy.
Of course. I don't have coffee. Good Lord. Well, coffee break over. Thank you. Fine.
It really is so non-PC. I'm slightly embarrassed about some of the material there that you wouldn't dare do now. I mean, Arthur between her legs and all that stuff. I hope people take it in the spirit in which it was made. But you wouldn't do it now, obviously. But it actually was symptomatic.
All right, Mr. Ferret.
I love the moment when Arthur turns to her and asks her to take a note or take a point. And she's sitting there. She's never had to take a note in her life. I mean, that's not what she's there for. And see you in the pub and all those sort of things. That actually, that was very much the attitude of so many men to women. If it's there now, they hide it more, except they get up into court now and again when all the brokers have to pay thousands to people working in the city. But it was really a deliberate, believe me, that wasn't chance. And Valerie was wonderful. I mean, she agreed. She was rather a sort of demure person. People were wearing short skirts like that. Of course it was. It was the mini and all that. They were wearing short skirts, but not exposing themselves to quite that same degree. And she had various supports and one thing and another to help the thing along. We had a very good casting director. They very rarely get mentioned, called John Merrick, who was then in his late 50s, 60s. And John knew, for instance, all those old actors. He knew all of them. And they all, when they heard one or the other one was in, for instance, the fact that John was in it and had written it, and Peter, you have to remember that they were so highly regarded. And the script was good. They thought the script was good. So you get Ronnie Corbett. And once you get Ronnie Corbett, then Arthur Lowe, everybody adored Arthur Lowe's work. Dennis Price, all those people, they loved the script, they loved the idea of it. And as far as Harold Pinter's concerned, I mentioned Peter, and he, as I say, he wasn't acting then. He'd been an actor in Rep, he'd done some things, but he was so intent then on his writing work that he wasn't doing it, which he has, as I say, he's come back and he's been acting again, did afterwards. And I think he was intrigued, and the truth is, although he wasn't publicly political then, you don't need to use your imagination much to realise what he saw in this film and what he saw was going on and what he inside viewed on it. Oddly enough, I spoke to him the other day and he'd seen it again and said it really struck home with him that he'd forgotten just how strong it was in those areas, which of course he's spoken out politically on all these matters since, in terms of the way the media is used and one thing and another. And that this actually, for him, gave him a chance, A, to act, which he loves, and he wasn't doing, and be something else and be something different, somebody else's words, I think. There's a sequence when they all come in the morning and pass Rimmer on the stairs with his clipboard. Each one gives something different. And all I had to say was, this is the situation. This is where you are. How would you get by him?
Any sign of Ferret yet, Tanya?
No, sir.
And there's a clue to Rimmer in one thing. A woman called Kitty Muggeridge, was married to a sage called Malcolm Muggeridge at the time, said that he rose without trace. He rose without trace. I wasn't entirely certain what that meant, but it seemed very significant, as indeed Rimmer does. Rimmer comes in, you don't know where he's from, you know nothing about him.
Mr. Ferret?
Yes. Didn't see you. Sorry about the hole in the wall. Terrible traffic today.
Have you got the results of the Wheaty Flake survey?
No, not as such, but I've got the one on boot polish.
And what does it show?
Well, it shows that 90% of British families don't like boot polish for breakfast.
Pete had astonishing success, and everything he touched was turning to gold. He was non-stop, full of thought, full of ideas. They all were, and they were all very aware of what was going on in the country. The whole satire thing, these were funny. They were really funny. They were all Oxbridge, educated. If you've ever seen Peter Cook's Macmillan, which is simply brilliant in his Beyond the Fringe, and then later on Behind the Fridge, which he did after Rimmer, actually. He did Behind the Fridge. That's the famous one with Dudley and the Tarzan sketch, you know, in the one leg. I've got nothing against your right leg, but neither have you. You know, it's that one. Well, here is Dennis Price.
What? Who are you?
Great star of the war and post-war period, doing a little cameo. And I felt this was a real privilege to be working with these people and not 1 second of trouble.
Well, that's what the decision should be. Must have slipped my mind. I'm afraid my wife's been a bit under the weather.
Nothing serious, I hope.
No, she'll linger on for quite a while yet.
I've got the report here if you'd like to see it, sir.
It's a bit large. Couldn't you give me a rundown? I'm rather busy today.
Well, basically, your firm is running an annual deficit of £75,000.
£75,000? My God. Do you know the words that come to my mind?
No, sir, I don't know the words.
Fire Ferret! Those are the words. Fire Ferret!
England now really in a commanding position, and the wicket is still...
One of my favourites is Arthur Lowe, always has been.
My goodness me, what a glorious extra...
Fire Ferret! Those are the words.
It really was the stroke of the day.
I know my way.
Most elegant play.
Arthur Lowe, at that point, had not made Dad's Army. He'd been Mr. Swindley in Coronation Street. He liked to finish at 5 and got upset if we went any later. I think it might even have been in his contract. He had a boat, not a narrow boat, but a sort of Thames cruiser with almost guns on it, I think, or something even grander. And he loved it, and he wanted to get back to his boat, particularly in the summer. And I remember the scene with the tea, and there might be some, you know, when he brought the coffee and then said there might be some tea in it. That was Arthur really thinking about his own tea at that point, I think. But what he was an old rep hand. He'd worked in rep. He was word perfect. And like all those actors, all the people in the government and the cabinet, all those sort of people like Michael Trubshaw, those old stagers, had the most exquisite manners. They all sent letters afterwards. I think it's very unlikely now, but everybody sent a letter.
£75,000.
£75,000? That is a lot.
You owe me a lot of money, Ferret. And you will remain with this firm, working very hard in a menial capacity for a pittance until such time as I decide that you have worked off your debt. Otherwise, it is P-R-I-S-O-N.
P-R-I...
My memory is that the budget was about $800,000, whatever that is now. And we shot for 47 days. What's that? Yeah, 8 weeks, 6-day weeks, basically we worked. We didn't copy anything. I think that's wrong to think that. But we did everything that was the latest thing. As I mentioned, the Jensen motor car, outflashing Bond, his chair I mentioned, hang from the ceiling. His office, marvellous.
Very nice to see you again.
Here is Graham Chapman as the humbug man. Graham didn't want a big part. As I say, he's a mystery. He was a mystery man to me. And I never really got to know him. He was always very nice, charming at parties, whatever. But he carried secrets, as we now know, and had big strains in his life.
Its extreme hardness makes it almost impossible to eat.
That's very true. Nobody knows this better than us, Mr. Rimmer.
I don't think there's any cause for worry, though. With the right sort of campaign, we can make a virtue out of these defects.
What's keeping him? Why doesn't he come?
The humbug commercial.
Suddenly.
It is a little embarrassing now, but we did think it was very funny, actually. The thing about it is it's very dreamy. It's different from the rest of the film because we had to justify the reaction that it got at the end of it, so you had to go too far. I was doing a lot of commercials at the time, and I just exaggerated the style. Marilyn, who played the girl under the sheet, was a very good choice, both because she was amazing to behold, but also because she appeared regularly in commercials and magazines and things, so people knew who she was, and it got the required effect.
She doesn't need him anymore.
I think one of the reasons we did all this, and in fact we're allowed to do it, was actually nobody was paying any attention to us. David was busy flying across the Atlantic. Warner Brothers were going through a terrible time. And in fact, I'll come back to that later in relation to the release of the film. And we just went on. I suppose scripts went to them. Whether anybody had any time to read them, I don't know.
Here's the coffee you asked for, sir.
It was tea, Ferret.
Ah, tea was it? Well, I think there may be some tea in it.
Good morning, Mr. Rimmer.
Morning, Tanya.
I've written with John since. And Rimmer, we talk about simply because of the affection for the various people. And Peter, particularly. I think particularly Peter, whenever we talk, and think how sad he's not with us. Because you would be in a room, and in a corner there'd be some people laughing, and you go over, and it would be Peter. And the incredible thing is, what they laughed. He wasn't malicious. The actual humour was so funny, and so it really was, and the way he did it. But it wasn't vindictive, and it wasn't unpleasant, and that's what is really remarkable. You really would walk into a room. We did a wonderful cruise some years ago, which John, in his great generosity, paid for. He took about 70 people down the Nile or up the Nile. Diana Coupland was a star. She'd been a star in British films. Amazing looking and on the stage. And she agreed to do this part. I think because she was with Michael Bates as well in it, because they are such a wonderful combination as the ordinary house, anything less ordinary than Diana Coupland. And when she invites him in, and you know what lies ahead, then he knows it when he goes for the next pole. And I thought she was wonderful. And the way she was so attentive when the buzzer went and the alarm for the next thing, I think she's a brilliant actress, and was, of course, a stunning looking and still a wonderful looking woman. She looks young to me now, and there she was this rather older woman.
It's quite enjoyable work. It's not really my profession, you know. No, I regard it more as a sort of stepping stone to show business.
Ooh. Now, the compromised minister, the chap who was found upside down, he's tied up at the moment, that was Trubshaw. And at that time, there'd been all kinds of scandals, sexual and otherwise, around this time. Christine Keeler, Profumo. And I think there was a big Duchess of Argyle divorce case. And supposed to be a masked performer at some orgy. And the mask was supposed to cover a cabinet minister. There were those who knew who it was, but I certainly had no idea. So when he appeared with the mask on, the audience at that time just got an extra laugh, that's all. In a sense, the film is both of its time with those contemporary references, but it's also, I think, remarkably prescient about what lay ahead with Spin. We want you, the people, to decide. Opinion polls. Harold Wilson, who was the Prime Minister at the time, thought he had the reins in his hands and was controlling things, but nothing compared to what has happened in the years since.
Oh, don't.
Then why is the car for sale?
Oh, there. Oh, that's a mistake. That's one of Rimmer's cock-ups. That should read, Falls Ale. It's a new beer we're advertising. Falls Ale keeps you hearty and hale.
I've never heard of it.
No, you may never. Very hush, hush.
And then the moon climbs a great copper ball until she tops a long dark line of the elms and laces the countryside silver. Well, then you'll hear a nightingale sing.
Pinter, Harold Pinter. Now, he was suggested by Peter Cook, who knew him. At that point, I didn't realise he was an actor. Now we think of him giving marvellous performances in his own and other writers' work. Then he was writing plays, of course. The Caretaker had come out in '63, knocked everybody off their seats. But he was also writing screenplays. It was a golden period for him with Joe Losey. The Servant, Accident, The Go-Between. He rarely spoke publicly at that time. This was before his committed public radicalism. And when he did, it was remarks like the weasel behind the drinks cabinet variety, which nobody understood. He was mysterious. And only a few years since he'd actually come into the public consciousness, it was only 3 or 4 years, mysterious. It was arranged that we meet at a pub just by Regent's Park. He lived, as I discovered, in a Nash Terrace house in the park. It was a late summer afternoon. I walked into the pub. It was dark, sunlight through dusty windows. If you can imagine a painting by an English Edward Hopper, that was what it was like, and the barman behind the bar. Then right at the other end of the pub, strategically placed for any untoward occurrence, was this backlit figure with a pint in front of him, smoking a cigarette. Now he doesn't smoke and tends to drink wine or champagne, but that was our first meeting. Very Pinter. But the strange thing is, when you get to know him, I worked on some of his plays, you discover that life takes on a Pinter slant. Things happen like that. People talk in that way. His hench, I think, was a wonderful combination of power and game playing, which you could say is true of him. Very different, for instance, from David's interviewing technique. But Harold and Denham loved playing scenes together. And then when one put alongside them something like Percy Edwards, whose name means nothing these days, he was a bird imitator. And all of us, all four, had had childhood memories of Percy, who'd made his career on the music halls, a real career, and the wireless, as we called it, imitating birds. Innocent days.
Over to us at the Fairbairn organisation.
Denham Elliott was just a great actor. He had been in The Cruel Sea and other very famous British films. And he's a real mystery. He never wanted a car to pick him up. He just appeared. He'd stroll in with a cigarette held at a particular angle he always had it at. And I can remember a scene on Worthing Pier when we were waiting. And we were sitting on the pier between shots. And the night before, I'd seen a television with Virginia McCann. Wonderful performance by her. She was born free and a very big star. And he was sitting there, and I turned to him and I said, I saw the telly last night. Did you see it? He said, no. And I said, well, do you know her then? And he didn't look at me, he just looked straight ahead and smoked out and said, I was married to her for 4 years. That was the end of the conversation. That's all you got. And he was a fascinating actor. He and Pinter got on terribly well. They loved acting together.
These 20 men are undertaking a survey on religious attitudes for international opinion polls. Tomorrow, Wednesday, they will be in Nuneaton. So will you. Lights, please. Those of you in Group 1 will go immediately to the Rawley shopping precinct. where you'll see this man.
Ferret!
Sorry.
What's the matter with Crudder?
Well, I'm afraid the sex survey's rather taken it out of him, sir.
Where you'll see...
The brilliant Ronnie Corbett. Ronnie is a wonderful actor, not just a comedian. His physicality and his control of his movement is quite extraordinary. The scene where he and John Cleese, the Buddhist scene where the voting is taking place, was choreographed. It was like a wonderful ballet with exquisite timing and very different behaviour from both of them. John's movements and Ronnie's movements. And I loved watching. We spent, 10 minutes rehearsing, that's all, in that place outside, wherever it was, some precinct. Because those were new. Shopping precincts were new, and we decided we'd shoot in a shopping precinct. Everything we did, we tried to make new.
Morning.
Morning.
I just clean my pockets out.
Nobody ad-libbed in that sense. What we did was obviously, when we were actually shooting, use the location. In other words, there would be things that would be used in a location which had not been obvious in the script. But when, like for instance, the scene I mentioned earlier with John and Ronnie Corbett, I think in the text it's just Ronnie, he avoids John going near him, which became something else because of the where we were in this precinct. And of course, there's some real people, I mean, the woman, my memory is that woman in the shop, at least two were actually people who were in the shop and came out to her pram and things. People, when you're filming, will do all kinds of things. It's very weird. It makes me think, to give you an idea of the time and the period and this whole new, everything being so new, people are not aware of the effect of being on television and being on film in the same way as they are now, and that applies to officials as well. And when I was on Tonight, we used to have a system. All mayors in those days wore chains. They always wore their chain of office. So if you wanted to interview them about latest car park somewhere or other, whatever it was, they'd arrive with their chain. And so you'd line everything up. And then you say turn over. And then you'd walk across, oh, Mr. Mayor, I must take this off, it's catching the light. And you'd take it from them. And the extraordinary thing was, and I don't know what's related to Rimmer, but I think there's something related to Rimmer, they then became very vulnerable because they were not used to this. You were in charge. I mean, it was really, you could go into town and ask them to strip naked practically, and they'd have done it. People were not as aware as they are now.
And before that you were...
A Buddhist.
Buddhist.
I'm frightfully sorry.
Look, could you please stop asking me the time? Stop it.
I'm a Buddhist.
There has been strong reaction in Nuneaton to the poll published today by IOP, showing that 42% of the population of Nuneaton are practicing Buddhists, 22% are Mohammedans, only 11% are Church of England, and that 9% are worshippers of the Great White Ram. From Nuneaton now, Gerald Pringle reports.
This astonishing result has raised strong feelings among the God-fearing people of Nuneaton. The man in the street is shocked and bewildered.
I'm shocked and bewildered, Gerald. I'm bewildered and shocked. Was that all right?
I'm not saying that Buddhism is a bad thing, but is it a good thing? It's possible to approach God in a great many different ways, but there's no need to be silly about it.
From the angry streets of Nuneaton, good night.
The leader of the opposition, Tom Hutchison,
Ronnie Fraser, playing the Conservative leader with the most extraordinary mouth. How on earth he put his mouth into those positions, I just don't know. Ronnie liked to drink. And I made a thing of not drinking when I was shooting. But one evening I went with him to a pub. We went in and he walked up to the bar and he said, in that strange voice, a double gin, barman, with just a kiss of tonic. Whenever I think of gin now, I just think with just a kiss of tonic. And he said kiss in the sort of lascivious way, most extraordinary way.
One take 8.
Mr. Rimmer, doesn't this result clearly demonstrate that we've placed rather too much trust in opinion polls?
Not at all, though I do think it raises some doubts about the sampling methods of IOP.
But why should we believe that your methods are any more reliable?
I just want to be judged by results, Steve. Take the forthcoming by-election at Limholt. I'm prepared to guarantee that our forecast will be within 1%.
Cut! Thank you, very visual. Very visual. You notice bent on the only quality of St. Paul's. 52 here, I think.
Bloody idiot, how the hell can you guarantee 1%?
We'll ask everybody.
Mrs. Spim.
Hello again.
We're conducting a survey into people's voting habits.
Come on in.
And now, here is the returning officer, Alderman Poot, to announce the results. The Fairbairn opinion poll has predicted a Conservative victory by 4.1%.
Edith Mellon,
Liberal,
3,212. Kevin Ferret,
Labour,
12,791.
That's down, and it is possibly a low poll.
Colonel Richard Pryor Grafton,
Conservative,
14,008.
wow, Conservatives in at 4.1%. Tremendous triumph for Fairbairn polls. And of course, the Conservatives.
Hello, Geoffrey.
Morning, Tom.
I must say I like the,
Ah, yes. Well, if the people won't come to the church must come to the people. I like the steeple particularly, don't you? The feeling that...
Julian!
Religion at that time, although much more part of everyday life than now, had already begun to move towards we've got to relate to people more and all those things. And the road that we started there with our bishop saying, probably almost my favourite line, was it St Paul or Cole Porter who said, I mean that line there. And the truth is with that, this was them trying to link, and it's all connected with publicity, promotion, the media, the way that things are presented being the really important things. We were terribly non-PC.
Hallucinogens in the wafers, sonnet lumiere in the graveyard, and of course these clothes are a bit out for the 1970s.
I think that's very good thinking, but there is one basic stumbling block.
What's that? What's keeping them away?
God.
I had a nasty suspicion it was that.
You see, 73% of the population find it very difficult to believe in him.
Well, I do think that doubt is a terribly important part of belief. You mean if we were to phase out the God side of the worship, we'd get better attendances?
I think it's worth trying, in any case.
Yes. A sort of Our Father, which might be in heaven.
Yes, that kind of thing. Good.
Delicious catering.
Hello,
Mr.
sir.
Rimmer,
Nice
sir.
to see you. Thank you.
Ferret, I
Thank you.
like that mackerel.
Peter, how very super of you to come.
Peter, as Rimmer, used phrases that people associated with David, particularly at the London Zoo scene, which was a breakfast party. At that time, David had breakfasts at which you would be invited, and you'd find half the cabinet there and a few archbishops and anybody else who mattered. This was an extension of that. We just simply exaggerated that.
I must say I was most impressed with the Limholt prediction.
Thank you very much.
I believe you're conducting a survey as to the relative merits of the Prime Minister and myself.
Yes, very interesting results.
The thing is, which I'm trying to dissociate really David and Rimmer, because although Peter used certain mannerisms, and although David represented at that time this incredible new wave, that wasn't specific in that sense, in the sense there's never been anything sinister about David, quite quite the reverse. But it's the way he was able to use the media, the way he mastered it, certainly for that period of time. So it wasn't anything. Peter would often make jokes about it, but that was really just to get things going. The truth is, Rimmer was this modern, ruthless man from where? We don't know, who rose on this wave of promotion, fixing, sound bites, no real policy, all the time saying things. We want you to decide. You, please talk. Let us talk to you. This all rings the bells now.
No, Ferret! That one!
And the first priority must be that of trade union reform.
What about unemployment?
Don't talk to me about unemployment.
Very good. Keep the turn. That was beautiful. Now if we could just try it once again.
Don't talk to me about unemployment, young man. I was unemployed before you were born. My memory of those terrible days in the 30s still brings tears to my eyes.
Now, cry now. Don't worry, Tom. We'll supply your tears.
Oh, thank you.
Right, next heckle. The people's flag is deepest red. It's shrouded of our martyr dead.
Thank you for your charming rendition, but I do not think the group is ready to record yet.
Lose the smile, love. Right, applause, applause. Hooray! Hooray! Wonderful! Well done, Tom! Well done, Tom! What a hand. Tom, that was absolutely terrific.
Fantastic walk.
Great, it was so natural this time.
You've done it again.
Peter's fixing the students. Everything's going to be all right on the night.
In this period, which was 68, when we did the script, 69 we shot it, this is the famous period, which younger people won't know about, when there were riots, student riots all over Europe. And over here, a chap called Tariq Ali was leading the protests. Get up and hit someone, says his man. Don't let's have any of that Gandhian rubbish here, or words to that effect. This was showing that we could actually show both sides of all these things. That we didn't say student protests, hooray, young people, good, which a lot of people were saying. At the same time, the posters they were holding up had signs dealing with abortion and liberate gay people, or whatever the words were on the posters. In other words, way ahead of the time, and certainly no issues that the film industry wasn't concerned with then. Comedies were meant to be comedies, just that. They were harmless fun, and this wasn't that.
Things like money. Speak to my agent about it. Get up! None of that old Gandhi rubbish. Get up and hit someone. Oh, Jay, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Would you all come over here, please? With the group singing, We Shall Not Be Moved, move over here, please. Fellow students, next week, the Conservative Party is holding its annual conference.
Hold on to the handkerchief, Tom, and no smiling.
I loved the cabinet. I loved them all, those faces. For somebody of my age, we're now talking in the 60s, these faces were from all the films I'd loved, all the films in the 40s and the 50s. And people like Michael Trubshaw, with names that you can't believe either. And they were all amazing, and they all worked at it, because these are not comedy actors, these were actors. And they were also individual. Each one gave something. The whole point of this kind of scene, which relates to the training that he'd been given, and you remember in the training, he actually said, don't talk to me about unemployment, because the planted question was going to be, what about unemployment? And some old lady in the audience clearly not part of Rimmer's setup, had got up early and they hadn't been able to stop her and asked about the pensioners. So naturally enough, Ronnie was in full flow and just going by his script. So he went on about unemployment, which did puzzle the old lady, and she sat down none the wiser. It's showing really he was a puppet.
No, I would ask the ushers not to eject our friends of the left. The Conservative Party believes in freedom of speech. And I only wish they did. Thank you for that charming rendition, but I don't think the group of vocalists of the left are ready to record yet.
Going very well.
And now if I may turn to economic matters.
What about the old age pensioners?
That's not the
What
script.
about the old age pension?
Don't talk to me about unemployment, young man. I was unemployed before you were born.
Of the hanky and the file, and then a hand hitting it. Sorry, I hit the desk now. And a hand hitting it. And the rest, you see, you didn't have to know or see anything. Once you'd seen that, that was it. Because actually, obviously Ronnie thought he was just going to get a lemon or something to cry, and hadn't even seen it. And Rimmer had kept that in there, in the folds of the handkerchief, you see, that he'd presented to him, and hit it, knowing, because he wanted that, Rimmer wanted that, so that he could cry and show emotion.
Lower taxation.
As you notice on the close-ups, his face was... We just put, you know, what you put on in their eyes and all that sort of stuff to come running down his face. But he used to get very hot, Ronnie. He was that build and that physique. And he got very hot in that hall, which is actually the Porchester Hall, near Porchester Baths, in what's now trendy Bayswater, what was then the back end of Beyond. And it's almost Notting Hill now, isn't it? And in that place, you used to get very hot, because you had a lot of lights, because you had to remember, although different lights were coming in, and lightweight and all those sort of things, we were still using really big brutes to light places like that. And they got really very hot, particularly when he was wearing, my memory serves me right, a rather sort of smart suit and things like that. So he was pouring with sweat anyway, I think. But crying is not a problem for a lot of people.
I am not saying that the Labour Party was responsible for this disgraceful episode. But I will say this. It did seem to be organised.
Just turn this way, come on. One more, please, up. Not this way, mister.
This way, mister. This way, please. Come on, please, up. This way.
Michael!
Yes? Well done, Tom. Very noble.
What's the next move then, Michael?
At the moment, Tom, I've got my personal life to consider. Thinking of getting married.
Well, congratulations, Michael.
I think an MP needs a wife by his side.
Quite right.
Who is it? That I'm not entirely sure of. Got the result of that poll yet?
Yes. Queen number 1, as usual.
She's out. Oh, yes. Number 2. Second most popular girl in Britain, Pat Cartwright. Show jumper. Very nice.
Love at first sight.
Pretty girl, isn't she?
The romantic fool, you.
Vanessa, I don't know, I think this was one of John Merrick's discoveries, because the thing about her was she was very contained. She was very contained altogether. I mean, physically, she looked lovely, as you saw doing all those exercises and one thing and another. She was just very easy to be with. She looked like somebody. She had a slight touch of Hayley Mills, not much, but a slight touch of that. And I think would have had a very important career, but I may be wrong here, but I think she got married and went to live in America.
Would you like to have a drink? My parents would love to meet you.
I'd love to. The trouble is I've got to dash and see the Prime Minister.
Oh.
How about dinner sometime?
Now, the locations, I'm really pleased about the locations. We went everywhere. We had wonderful sets, which Carmen did. Our base was a tiny studio in St John's Wood. It's a church, an old church at St John's Wood. But we went everywhere. The old Collett Court School we used, down by Hammersmith, which was empty at the time, and that was where we had all the training scenes for when they're trying to get the leader of the opposition to learn how to react to heckling and things like that. Porchester Baths, that's when we had party meetings and when he gives his speech with the crying. Downing Street, that really was Downing Street. As you can see, when we pan to the door, and they let us use it. They let us do it and walk in. That would be inconceivable now with all the barricades at each end. Conservative Party headquarters was Conservative Party headquarters. That was their bust of Winston Churchill in the corridor there. A new office on the North Circular. We went all over. The shot on the roof near St Paul's, a new building and going up there. We were moving so many times every day. I think it's probably significant that I had a background in television and in documentaries. So I was actually used to moving quickly, getting things on the hoof, and in fact I sent up that kind of thing with the walking backwards on the roof sequence, because that's what I spent a lot of my time doing before that, walking backwards while people talked. What amazes me is nobody asked to see a script, as far as I know. Maybe they did. If they had, they surely wouldn't have let us in. And I want to know whether it's inconceivable now, did they have less fear of ridicule, of danger, or were they naive? And it's important, which I'll come back to later, what it was like then in this country in terms of how politicians were and how they were presented.
It's been an inspiration to me over the years. With this ring...
Stop it. We mustn't.
Once doesn't count as breaking training.
I've got the Olympic heats tomorrow.
I got the Olympic heats tonight.
I think I've achieved a new personal best.
The surprise upset at the White City was the defeat of Pat Cartwright, who failed to complete her round. She complained afterwards of stomach cramps. We see her now coming out on Brown Goblin. She's safely over the first, riding slightly higher in the saddle than usual. Quick turn here.
Where's it all gone?
Huh? Where's all what gone?
The furniture.
Ah. Well, while you were out this morning, it started getting a bit shaky. So I just popped it into the furniture shop to have it repaired. I rather like it like this. Great feeling of space. Care for a glass of Falls?
Good morning. Nice to see you again so soon, sir.
George A. Cooper bears, I think you can say, some resemblance to Harold Wilson. Not necessarily physically, but in his manner and in his demotic approach. And basically, Harold, of course, smoked cigarettes, and the pipe was for public use to a lot of the time. Not saying entirely, but that was certainly the case. And his whole manner of being one of the people, and I'm just like you. This is a man who was a cabinet minister at 27, and a brain like a laser. And this is what George A. Cooper. He was being Harold, but without the brains, and he gave the manner, and could be told to appear and keep appearing. I love the doorman. Nice to see you again since this morning, or whatever it was, something like that. It was the belief that television held it. You could reach the people. They get sucked in. Somebody says nobody leaves Downing Street sane. And the truth is that you get sucked into believing that everybody wants you and can't get enough of you. And I'm afraid that's what happened. But George A. Cooper did it so well.
I mean, Uncle Eric's got this super idea about a boat race. £5,000 for the first West Indian who could row back to Jamaica. Well, then they'd all sort of row off. It'd be fantastic. I mean, you can imagine...
Your shop?
Oh, my shop. Come here, Auntie Vanya. Here we are.
As Sir Eric is retiring in any case, why don't you allow him to express his real views?
The man's a lunatic. Good shot, Eric.
Exactly. He could make a grossly inflammatory speech. You could sack him and emerge as a man of principle, yet the impression would still get about that we are tougher on immigration than the socialists. Peter, I wonder if I could tear you away from my fiancée for a moment. Like you to call up a few newspapers.
Nobody could accuse me of being a racialist. But when I hear stories as well authenticated as this...
The Are We Mad scene was one of our favourite scenes. When he goes on saying, are we mad? Because what that shows is two things. One was the clear, awful racism, and you have to remember that was the period. And a lot of people, Enoch Powell, speeches, Rivers of Blood, all those things. The thing about it is that what happened was, when he said, are we mad, to begin with the first time, it's actually just in the middle of a sentence. It's not actually a big thing. The press, as soon as they heard, are we mad, went forward and asked him to do it again. So by the end, he was screaming it out. So you had the influence of the press on an already volatile situation. And this was beginning to happen more and more. Our popular newspapers were getting more and more like this.
To be ruthlessly poked by blacks.
Are we mad? Are we mad? Are we mad? Are we mad?
Look to the right, sir. To the right.
Are we mad?
Now, please,
Are we mad? Are we mad?
Very good. Look to the right, sir.
Are we mad? 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 Are we?
Have you read this film?
In fact, one of the two decent people in the film who, right at the end, tries to kill Rimmer, and in between had said this was disgraceful what was going on. He's one of the two decent people. And of course he's attacked and beaten up. Probably we felt Rimmer had arranged it all. And he still kept to his principles, and he's a really decent man. But during it, and looking back, I wonder whether the attack wasn't a bit too real in a way, because it did get quite vicious, but saying things like, I got rid of them and things like that, which I'm not sure you could do now. But the whole point was to show a decent man being set upon like this.
It's no good. I must speak out.
You see, Hugh, I don't think Tom wants another 5 years in opposition.
I don't care. I won't be muzzled.
I think there's a general thing I want to say, which is that in the film, with the exception of two people, the Arthur Lowe character and the liberal figure, Arthur, in a sense, represents old England. I mean, that place he went to, that shambling office, was England. Rimmer was creating the new one. Rimmer was creating a place where everything could be studied, everything could be organised, everything could be fixed, polls could be fixed. You could get people to do what you wanted. You manipulated, you used the media. Nobody had actually looked at that. And I think it might seem a little bit sort of grand to say, but I did think we tried to look at that. I think it's also very funny myself, but then that's just me. I was there and making it with those wonderful people. And I feel a great privilege that I was there with them at that time to make something that actually, the people who come to me now and want to talk to me about it are often young people who've been at university, and they're shown at film clubs and that kind of thing, and they have some idea. I just hope, looking back now 40 years, it makes some kind of sense.
Hello, Whitey. Hello, Whitey.
Hello, Whitey.
This is Richard Pearson. I'd known his work on television. Normally very serious plays where he plays troubled people and generally is given a pretty bad time. Now, Richard never, during the whole of the shooting, did anything other than present exactly what I wanted. And he was completely serious. The great thing about these people who do comedy so well is actually they're not saying, I'm trying to make you laugh. He never once did that. And when he said, I think it's the one in the green shirt, it was done like a man who really was trying to think who the chap was that had done it. And he was not going to step out of that. Nobody, that's all the time he kept saying this, don't play it for laughs. In fact, the language, you see, this is where Peter came into his own, and John. They love language, and the rhythms in the language, in the scenes, and the between people, that's where the laughs came. And that's, in a sense, why it happens. And the exaggeration. The exaggerations was within a frame of what was happening. It wasn't an exaggeration to make you laugh, because the whole thing was exaggerated to make its point. Budley Moore is a not too subtle link to Dudley Moore, because Dudley, I told you about the lunches when Dudley used to come. Well, Peter treated him in those lunches in the same way that he did in all their sketches. Little man and all that stuff, and putting him in his place. And Dudley, when he would start, as I said, on the gold standard, Dudley would actually come in and start asking the questions just as if he was Dud in the show. And they do Pete and Dud in front here. I say, if I'd have had the recordings of those scenes, they would have been golden records, because they were at their peak. They were flying. Peter didn't need a script. So much of his stuff he didn't need. That in almost when he was at his best. It wasn't, I think that having to act and having to do the script was a restriction on Peter in some ways. Although he did it very well, it was a restriction that he left to fly was extraordinary. So Budley Moore, which he said it's the only way we'll get Dudley into the film, or as near as we can.
You must be pretty fit. How's married life suiting you?
How should I know? I've hardly seen him since the ceremony.
What about all those lovely pictures of you together in the papers?
That's about the only time we've been together. When there's a photographer around.
Yes. Yes, I must admit there is a calculating side to Michael that I find very, disturbing. But do you actually know anything about him? I mean, where does he come from?
Never talks to me about it. Just tells me that he was found in the bulrushes. You can't stand him, can you?
No. No, nothing like that. No, I just don't like to see what he's doing to you.
What he's not doing to me.
But the way they deal with props, I mean, the way that George A. Cooper dealt, it was very brave what he did on that trampoline thing, you know, because nobody had done that kind of thing. They'd only just come out, I think, those moving things to walk on. And he had to fall back through that thing. And we had a stuntman try it before, but it was done. That was it. That was for real. It reminds me also, talking about finesse and things like that, with Arthur Lowe. Every time somebody came into his office, he took the same sheet of paper and put it in front of him. You know, if somebody walks in the office to interview and he grabs a bit of paper and puts it in front of him, it's that kind of thing, which I have no memory, I haven't looked back to the script, but that could quite easily have been Arthur adding that. And we mocked the use of teleprompters, because I can remember using teleprompters in the old days when I worked in the studio on a nightly magazine programme before I was out directing. And they would jam, or they'd pick the wrong thing. And I once did a whole thing about Picasso, which somebody had got 120 captions, and actually the third and fourth caption had caught together. So we went, the whole 100 captions of Picasso's work were to the wrong script. The producer, who'd spent all 2 days preparing it, actually pretty well lost her senses. That's another story.
Is there nobody in control here?
Rimmer wasn't released until the next year, which was 1970. Late in the year, there was an election in June 1970, in fact, when the Conservatives came in. And the story was that, for various reasons, certain people didn't want the film to be shown before the election. I have no idea about that. I have no idea whether that was the case or not. All I know is it would normally have probably gone out in early summer release, and it went out later. I was in Spain, actually, making another film, The Light at the Edge of the World, with Kirk Douglas and Yul Brynner, which was a different cup of tea, when Rimmer came out. The film wasn't understood at all in America, I don't think, but it wasn't released well. Producers have a very important role after a film is made in making sure it gets the best opportunity. They have to be energetic, single-minded and determined with the studios. In this case, Warner's were in turmoil and had a regime change, which meant we lost our support as the head of the studio, who had been our main support, left. The new group had no interest in us at all. David was busy. I was out of the country. Pete was doing Pete and Dud. John had started Monty Python. So it was a bit of an orphan. As far as I can remember, it received good reviews, except there was still this film critics' snobbery about television people in it. I suffered a little bit because I made a joke to Sight and Sound, the first joke I ever made to them, and the last one, because I said it was the British Z, or Z. Now, Z was a wonderful film by Costa Gavras, a revolutionary art house success. And I meant it as a joke, because I smile when I said it, but this smile didn't go in the note that came in the review. So I suffer because of that.
Conservative Shadow Chancellor resigns. Ill health given as reason. Surprise appointment of Tory whiz-kid Michael Rimmer.
The next Conservative government will reduce income tax,
I think we hit a lot of nails on the head, I have to say. And I think it's relevant. And I think the truth is we've been warned. I think this film is a warning. I think it's very easy to slide into irritation with politics, let them get on with it, which I think is incredibly dangerous. Because I think the weapons in the hands of government now are 1,000 times more than they had now. I'm talking about observational techniques. I'm talking about the way you can track anybody or anything. Our roads are full of things that can check where your car is, when it went to. All very useful, I'm sure, in some police activities. Nevertheless, I mean, the whole business of making everybody be on registers and the whole discussion now about having to have special passes to go here and there and everywhere. We're surrounded by, and everything you do is logged. Nobody could have conceived then that Tesco's would know precisely what it is that you eat, when you eat it, how often you eat it. And you wonder sometimes whether there's any point in your going. You might as well just give them a ring and say, just send me the usual. And they'll click down to their stores and say, oh, it's number 7,553 and it's a Thursday. Well, you know, and they'll send you the stuff. But I think we should beware, and we should be aware. And this is a comedy, of course it's a comedy, but I think there are serious matters in there, and they've got more serious, not less, because of the technical position, partly, and also because it seems there are none of those, that there are no Arthur Lowe figures, or they're falling out of our society. There are very few of those liberal Home Secretaries. And they see, you know, a liberal Home Secretary, and the last one we had, I think, was Roy Jenkins. I'm not being political now, I'm just talking in terms of where balances need to be. And I personally feel that we should be very aware and very concerned. I mean, all the things we discussed in the film with race and other things, and being open-minded about things. I'd worked on the Tonight programme and used, in those days, the latest lightweight cameras and interviewing techniques. This media approach was new in British comedy, and in particular in film. In those days, film and television, film critics and film producers felt themselves a bit above television upstarts, not aware how the world was changing. They weren't aware how the world was changing. We sent up all those techniques because we'd done them, we'd been part of it, and the Labour and Conservative leadership. Also, at the time, satellite equipment, which was quite new, was always going wrong, hence Norway. I don't know why, we all thought Norway was very funny. We thought dung was funny too, as well, for some reason, which is why we kept showing it.
Now let's take one more look at the state of the party. Well, that's the position.
Televerite, to my way of thinking, was actually telephosite. There was a thing called a famous swingometer, which they had on the BBC at that time. And everybody used to take themselves terribly seriously, killing the hours before any results came in. And then they normally happened in the wrong place, or you didn't have a camera there. We did not have the techniques. We did not have those things.
In London. And we must go back up to Clitheroe, as I think they may have something for us. Come in, Freddie. Freddie, can you hear me? In that case, back to New York.
Here in Stockholm, we are extremely excited.
We don't want to talk to you at the moment, Dr. Lunds. If we could talk to you later. We're going back to Clitheroe to get the first result.
Oh, but I want to
Thank you, Dr. Lunds. We'll come back to you in a moment. So over to Freddie Daring in Clitheroe for the first result. Hello, Freddie.
So.
Hello, Freddie.
Over here in New York.
Hello, Freddie. If we could just get Freddie.
No, we don't have the result yet, but in the closing minutes, these lads are going really berserk. George Winthrop, one of the most experienced counters, broke a finger just now, but he's carrying on.
Hello, London.
Well, thank you, Freddie. Well, still no results from Clitheroe. Peter Niss. In that case, let's rejoin our good friend, Dr. Lunds, in Stockholm. Are you there, Dr. Lunds?
He has gone to the... He will be back.
In that case, let's go over to Paris, where Pierre Dubois is waiting. Bonsoir, Pierre.
Bonsoir.
Pierre Dubois, both candidates at Clitheroe are keen supporters of the common market. What's the French reaction to this phenomenon?
Écoutez, monsieur, je ne comprends rien. Ils m'ont fou, salut. Les services non compris. Comme d'habitude, d'ailleurs.
Ah, well, I don't think we've located the right Pierre Dubois. But while we were talking to Paris, we did get the first result. Not from Clitheroe, but from Beccles. And here it is. A Conservative gain of 17,000. Now let's see what swing that is. Over to Magnus Orbison on the swingometer. Peter Niss.
Well, that's just under a 20% swing to the Conservatives. It's exactly what we predicted at Fairbairn. Now, if it's repeated, it'll give the Conservatives an overall majority of, what, 265?
Ah, well, now the results are coming in thick and fast. And here's an interesting result. Michael Rimmer has held Budley Moor for the Conservatives with a greatly increased majority.
He's in.
More than 10 years ago, I first was aware of Tony Blair because my wife interviewed him actually she edits a prison magazine, and he was then Shadow Home Secretary, and she interviewed him about his views on penal reform and things. And at the time, I was very impressed, and so was she, by him and everything. So, and I don't think, he's a warm, he's not a cold person either, and I don't feel that. What I do feel, though, is that the methods that Rimmer used have been so refined. I'm not talking politically now. I'm actually talking about the methods that they refined within the Labour Party, which is with Mandelson and other people. They refine methods of testing people, checking people, sampling people, manoeuvring people, manipulating people. You can either say this is the way it has to be, or you can say this is not the way it has to be. Nevertheless, I don't think as a person that it couldn't be more different. I think the way he was handled, in a way, Rimmer foretold that, I think.
Stockholm.
The Prime Minister is holding an emergency cabinet meeting at Chequers to discuss what he describes as the very grave financial situation.
Gentlemen, the Chancellor is bringing in the exact figures, but I do feel that unless we announce strong measures, there is a grave danger of another run on the pound.
Oh. I wonder if you would excuse me a moment. I have a rather important call to make to my wife in Zurich.
Gentlemen, I must ask you as patriots and ministers not to speculate against the pound.
Actually, the helicopter is quite interesting. And I now think one of the reasons we had the helicopter in was because there'd been an incident, not an incident, but there'd been an event which was to do with Mick Jagger. And there'd been a lot of press about him and possible drugs and one thing and another. There was a summit meeting, can you believe this, where the editor of the Times, an archbishop, I like to think it was the Archbishop of Canterbury, sat on this lawn waiting with the press around him, and arriving by helicopter came Mick Jagger, walking into this to sit by them while they discussed youth and the future. And that was the kind of thing we were trying to do. We were trying to use everything that was modern, everything that was happening in PR and the other ways, and in the way the press and television was used. We tried to link all those to Rimmer and his rise.
Now, Michael, what are your proposals for dealing with this crisis?
Well, first of all, I'd reduce income tax, reduce purchase tax, and increase the old age pensions.
You must be mad.
Well, I think we ought to honour our pre-election pledges.
Oh, no, Michael, nobody expects that of us.
Yeah.
No, the normal routine is to say that we're all staggered and horrified and then blame it all on the last lot. I mean, what are our gold reserves at the moment?
2.5 million.
God almighty.
No, seriously, Michael, what are your proposals?
Well, I've been having a word with our friends in Paris and Bonn.
I didn't know we had any friends in Paris and Bonn.
And I think that while I'm sort of sorting things out, it would be best to sit back and do nothing for a couple of weeks.
Good idea. Well, all those in...
Ronald Fraser. This was a masterclass in timing, in language, the use of language, the way he spoke, his movements, his eyes, the use of his eyes. His mouth is a work of art in itself, where it went all over the place. And also his timing. And I remember with the crying sequence that went on, the thing is, he wasn't expecting me to go on. And I kept the camera running. And he had to keep up thinking things to do to make it different from the last one. I thought it was getting more and more hysterical and hilarious, and I just let it go on and on. So that's what you saw. These were completely improvised. I use that word very guardedly. Totally in character, totally within the thing. But some of those looks he gave after a certain time, I knew part of it was signalling to me that he'd reached the end of his tether, but actually that's, it's something else. But Ronnie, sadly he's died as well, but he was a marvellous actor. I mean, I'd seen things on television of his that were so moving. He was an incredibly moving actor when he was playing a serious part. And in that one, he became this ludicrous figure who became the Prime Minister.
Britain's defences have never been stronger. Take a look at the unique British hover bomb, which hovers over the enemy, issuing instructions to surrender.
In defence, Rimmer's army, rather like ours now, had no real weapons, just models. Rather like Saddam's weapons of mass destruction, actually. They were about as important. And all the top brass went along with it because their salaries were being doubled. Not that they would do that these days, of course. Or they would get honours, or they'd get something. Rimmer realised this. Everybody he believed was viable, and everybody could be moved and manoeuvred and fixed. All appearance and little reality.
It's hard at work gathering fish.
I've never seen any of those.
So for those who think that the British lion has lost its teeth, let them be warned that it can still give them a pretty nasty suck.
I think this display here will answer all your questions.
But they're just models.
That's all we need. Thanks to our film department, we have the finest deterrent force in the world. This will save roughly £1 billion a year, enabling me to increase your own salaries by 100%.
What? Twice as much, Willie.
Oh, mum's the word. What about the other rank, sir? But most chaps join the army to do a bit of...
Julian Glover was a great coup. It so happened that I'd met Julian through Tim West, in fact, who I'd worked with. And I went to see him. He's such a good stage actor. And he hadn't done much film at that time, although, of course, Star Wars and things afterwards, I think. But Julian was very strong, very strong as an actor. I remember his Macbeth years later, which I saw down at Bristol. Very good actor. Also could look as if he'd cut your throat if you got anywhere near him, which is why, as Colonel Moffat of the Spoffats, and I can hardly say it, he was quite wonderful and turned a tiny part into something. He was a real person. And the way he knocks the other officer aside as he strides across the terrace when he's talking to somebody. I mean, it's terrific. And Julian, we were so lucky to get somebody like him. He was very young at the time. He looked old. He's always looked old. And now he's older, he looks even better, I think. A great actor. And I think this must have been a very early film of his.
Here we are, sir. There's enough elephantiasis in there to wipe out the whole of China. Just think of it. 600 million bloated chinks rolling around.
And where are the Union Jackali?
Over here.
I think Norman Rossington is extraordinary in his small part. Because, I mean, when he was a big grin on his face, as he describes however many it was Chinese dead, I mean, it was something like 40 million chinks or something. I mean, absolutely appalling way to talk about people. But it was that really kind of a man who knew, who relished his job and doing it, and really enjoyed what he was up to.
Thank you. I'll see you again soon.
Next.
Have you anything to tell us, sir, please? I'd just like to say that my talks with the President were wide-ranging, full, and exhaustive.
Sweep in and wipe them off completely.
No survivors?
No survivors? That's a bit rough. I'd better tell Mary right away.
No, sir. No survivors on their side.
Oh, that's more like it.
Simple, effective, and bloody good fun.
Better master the machinery. Know your weapon. How do these chaps work? Press firmly with the index finger, first ensuring that all ranks are wearing gas masks.
The Swiss have been asking for it. I mean, what self-respecting nation can go 500 years without a war?
The Swiss?
Exactly.
Now said.
You see, people these days have lost their sense of values, honor, decency.
Courage and loyalty.
Yes. I can't tell you how grateful we chaps are, Michael, to you for giving us this chance to do something for Britain. You know, ordinary people are just sick and tired of being pushed around. Pipe major! Gentlemen, I give you Operation Cuckoo.
Operation Cuckoo. God bless her.
The skiing scenes took place in Austria, not Switzerland, but they were in Austria. It was in the middle of summer, and there was this place, and it must have been 13,000 feet up or even higher, where there was snow. It was actually a place where there was a ski lift working. We went up, we did it there. We travelled, shot, and returned in 2 days. This was not a lavish production. We put all these Swiss skiing instructors in kilts, made them part of the Spoffats. And I think the only person who travelled was Julian, who was the colonel running the Spoffats at the time. And so all the scenes, and the actual castle was the one they used in Where Eagles Dare. It's the same castle. So we were doing a lot of film referencing, I think, is the thing at this time.
This way, chaps. Well, in you go, then. Quick as you can.
North Sea gold find confirmed. Big boost for sterling. Swiss government break off diplomatic relations with Egypt.
It gives me great pleasure.
All the stuff we shot. In other words, there was no footage from somewhere else to put in. As it happened, I'd done some work on an oil rig, but I mean not working, but filming. And I knew a link, and there was an oil rig quite near, and we actually got a second unit to go out and do some aerial shots. But the actual oil rig itself was in the playground of the studio at St John's Wood, where Carmen had put up on this 10-foot up or something. That's where we had to get extra money, because we'd run out of money, and Warner's agreed for a bit more money to do that. You'll notice the way it's shot. Apart from that, it's very obvious that he pushed him off. I love the slow motion, which made it even clearer, and they go on as if this wasn't the case. But the shots there were all taken on this platform, most of them looking up, as you'll see, looking up to them. Obviously, the fall in the water wasn't. That we did somewhere. We must have gone out. Where did we do that? Must have been on the rig, I think, when we did the wide shots. Actually, it was, with the yellow dummy and the yellow Mac. The let go of the gold is another of my favourite lines. The position then was that Carmen simply built, because we had no money, we couldn't possibly go out to the rig again with a full crew, just built a few things round and put some people around, and we shot it. That was the oil rig. So we didn't waste money. I wanted it to look really good. I wanted it not to look like just another comedy you could ignore. Graham Crowden was eccentric. He's an eccentric person. And you never knew with him. He would come out with lines that were very straightforward, and when out of his mouth, they would suddenly explode. And also his keenness and understanding as the clergyman, wanting to get alongside modern life, feeling he's being engulfed by these tidal waters, and quite prepared to give up God if that's going to help in his quest to move on. Graham Crowden, I used to go to the National and see him doing things. This was afterwards, because there was no National at that time. But ever since, I admired him. He's a very original, very odd. I wonder whether these odd faces now exist, and these kind of extraordinary people and actors. They do, I think, but we just don't see them so much.
This time in slow motion. Here we see the Prime Minister moving to one side to give the photographers a better view of the gold. This is the crucial moment. The Prime Minister slips, Michael Rimmer rushes to his side, but is unable to save him. But even so soon after the tragedy, the question on everybody's lips is,
who will succeed?
I can't say I like the man, but you must admit he's got something.
Well, I can't say I like the man, but I must admit he's got something. What about you, Mandeville?
I can't say I like the man, but I must admit he's got something on me.
And there we are, folks. That's number 5 in our top 30 this week. And I think at the other end of this telephone, because it's time for our afternoon telephone call, is Mrs. Ferret.
Hello?
Hello, Mrs. Ferret.
That's right, Dave. But Constance to you.
Great. Now, what do you do, Constance?
I'm just an ordinary housewife.
Great. What does your husband work at?
My husband, Dave. Oh, he's a failure.
Fine. And as an ordinary housewife, who would you choose to lead the Conservatives?
Oh, Michael Rimmer, Dave. He's everything my husband isn't.
Well, Constance, all I can say to that is...
Groovy, baby.
He's ruthless, opportunistic, dishonest, shallow, evasive, and unprincipled. But I'm still not sure he'll make a good leader.
I shouldn't wait up for me tonight, darling. I might be a bit late.
I want a divorce.
Divorce? Why?
To put it in the only terms you'd understand, sexually speaking, we're 70% below the national average.
I shouldn't pay too much attention to 1 month's figures.
Scenes in the bathroom, and also the ones pushing herself against the frosted glass with the nipples showing the pubic handings. It's very strange. I was rather surprised when I saw it this time and saw that, in fact, she's sitting there in the bath with, lovely looking girl, as she was, and then getting out and all that. I have no memory of any problems. I certainly don't remember being a closed set. It was actually a set that was built by Carmen, and I suppose we were all very young. I don't know. It's fascinating, that. And I looked at it the other day, and I thought, I suppose a lot of people would say it was totally unnecessary. What's called completely unnecessary nudity. It doesn't get the plot going at all, or is essential for the workings of the internal mechanism of the script. None of that. It just seemed natural to do it. And I'm puzzled by that, actually. But I thought she looked wonderful. That's all I can say.
Think of all the things we would be able to do together. I thought you loved me.
I do love you.
And I love you, Peter.
And I love you, Beth.
Well, let me out then.
Oh, don't do that. You'll bruise your lovely shoulders.
If you loved me, you'd let me out.
But I do love you.
And I love you. So let me out. You stupid, spineless, sycophantic. If you let me out, you can have me.
Darling Pat.
May I say how proud and privileged I am to have been elected leader of the Conservative Party?
I don't believe it.
Thank you.
He's done it.
So he has. Sorry, darling.
Thank you.
Duty calls.
Albeit under circumstances which I most bitterly regret. This is not a time for false hopes. The situation is critical, and I intend to take immediate action. Let's start improving our monthly figures. Colonel Moffat, late of the Spofford's, is our new Minister of Defence. Teddy Mandeville will be Minister of Labour. now happily recovered from his illness. I've chosen him because, above all, Teddy is a deeply human man, and nobody knows better than me how very human he can be. As public opinion polls have become such a vital part of our democratic way of life, the time has come to take them out of private hands where they could possibly be misused. I've therefore created a national poll board under the chairmanship of Mr. Peter Niss. Now you know that I've never sought power, and now that I have power I want to share it with you. For it is you, the people of Britain, that have made this country great. From now on, I want to consult you directly. On every major issue there will be a referendum in which you can vote, so at last we can enjoy a real democracy. Good night.
During the film, we actually wish, or the people in the film, wish a dictatorship on themselves. The only thing I'm worrying about, whether we had security cameras in the film. If not, we missed a trick. I suppose it was too ridiculous to think we would now spend our time being spied on as we walked about our streets. Certainly we wouldn't have thought so then. Rimmer did say we're going to adapt our society to fit its real needs. I'm sure that rings a bell. Another thing was the coaching of politicians in TV techniques. This was new. This hadn't happened. And when we did it with Rimmer, people thought that was just such an exaggeration. Now people earn very good livings teaching politicians how to be sound bites, all those things. Rimmer actually had TV manipulation ready. In those days, it was only just beginning. I mean, the Prime Minister's recording equipment, that terribly obvious and clumsy things. Well, Nixon only came a few years later. Now I think about it, in fact, we did have observational cameras because there's a scene where Denham Elliott is with the wife in the gym, and later on, that scene is replayed by Rimmer. So clearly he had cameras everywhere and watched everything they got up to, presumably in the beds as well.
I'd like to know your feelings on water pollution.
What could be more boring than water pollution?
Regional development?
That is a good one.
Hello? Oh dear. The postmen are threatening to strike.
Good.
How can I be expected to know about the agrarian reforms of Nang-eyed Twat?
Yes, I know his heart's in the right place and he's doing it for us. And let's be fair, he never sought power. But this isn't democracy. He shouldn't try and get us involved. That's his job. He's the leader. I mean, that's what we're paying him for, isn't it? Yes.
During today,
no more
the demonstrations against the new democracy have reached their peak. Pillar boxes have been blown up, and a group of 20 post office workers have chained themselves to the railings outside Buckingham Palace.
Earlier today, National Poll Board Chairman Peter Niss faced a furious crowd demanding an end to government by referendum. Hello again. Regional development. If you turn to page 98 of your TV voting guide, you'll find full details of televote number 318.
As your Prime Minister, I hope I've never been afraid to admit my own mistakes. In every way, the economy is booming. But I must admit that our experiment in participatory democracy seems to have run into some difficulties. Perhaps I was too idealistic. It may well be that in these modern times we need a more streamlined form of presidential government. You must let me know if you share these feelings. Next week, you'll have the chance to tell me, in what could be, if it's your wish, the last referendum for some time.
I cut it. How's that feel?
Okay, Brian, that's the one.
I read this referendum. What you're suggesting is nothing more or less than dictatorship.
Well, you, like everybody else, Hugh, will have a chance to vote against it. It's perfectly democratic.
But what you don't realize is that 90% of the population are idiots.
I always thought all men were equal.
You won't get away with this, Rimmer.
The trooping of the colour was for real. We shot it and then intercut scenes of Peter in his great car moving forward. Because of my background of documentaries, I actually had also done a film about the Guards, so I knew my way around with the Guards and also how to get permissions and things. Once again, I wonder whether we could be so free with it now.
We shall overcome. Venceremos. We shall overcome.
The ending upset a lot of people. It might not be the case now, but Kennedy's assassination at Dallas was fresh in people's minds, and I copied the cavalcade shots quite deliberately and added the view through telescopic sights. I cut with the Liberal Home Office minister saying it's a a darkish day for the country, shouting Venceremos, which was the Castro and Che Guevara cry, as he attempted to throw a smoking bomb, taking care to say, "Excuse me," as he pushed through the cheering crowds, only in English. In those days, terrorists would have done that. It all has a colder feeling now, I know. This made the ending, the marksman falling on him, and the sound of the bomb going off over Rimmer's cold, smiling face, even more appalling than cold. It's still upsetting, I think.